This is the planning worksheet for creating an F pentatonic composition with an antecedent and consequent phrase. Make sure you put your name or paper first thing. Let's go ahead and label the letter names and also the scale degree. Since we are in F pentatonic, F is going to be our number 1. Here's F, and that is number 1. Please go ahead, pause the video, and label the remaining letters. Now that you've labeled the letters, you can double check with my paper. F, G is 2, A is 3. We're not using B, which would be number 4. It goes to C, which is 5. High D is 6. Coming down to low D, it is also 6, and C remains being 5, the 5th scale degree. Now, when we compose, we're going to create 3 different antecedent phrases. We'll play them and figure out which one you like the best. We don't do anything in the consequent phrase until after we compose for the first. So I'm going to go ahead and write out my 3 examples. You don't have to use mine if you don't wish to, but you can copy mine as well. So I will take a moment to write out my examples on here. I will first start with quarter notes, and I'll go back and change a few to eighth notes to make the melody a little bit more interesting in a moment. One, antecedent 2, and then I'm going to come over to antecedent 3. Okay, I don't compose anything for the consequence. That's going to be determined by which antecedent I play. Now I have quarter notes, and that's good. But I'm going to go back and make some of them eighth notes. I'll take the G. To turn it into an eighth note, I have to draw a second note value of the same pitch and then beam together. And I'll do the same thing in measure 2 for antecedent 1. I'll do, how about the third beat? Draw an extra note and then beam. And the third beat again. Okay. And this one, I'm going to do beats 1 and 2 of these measures. Alright, now remember for our antecedent phrases, this starts on F, which is scale degree 1, ends on G, which is scale degree 2. Antecedent 1 is one of the options to compose. 1 and 5, we start on F, we end on C, which is the 5th scale degree. We start on 1, which is F, we end on C, which is also the 5th scale degree. Now, you go ahead and you play these on an instrument, and when you decide which one is your favorite, you're going to go ahead and circle it. I think my favorite, after I played it, is number 2. So I'm going to circle that. I'm not going to use number 1. I'm not going to use number 3 now. Consequent phrase, please write the word in capital letters, copy. This is not something new. You are only going to copy the notes from here. These notes get copied exactly with your rhythm and your pitches onto the music, except for the last note, which is different. We end on F, which is pitch 1. Now I have these 2 consequent phrases, the antecedent and consequent. Underneath that on this worksheet, it brings us to our Bourdon patterns. What you can do is go ahead and just copy your Bourdon patterns in the available measures following. The first one, can you remember what the name is of the first one? If you said chord, you are correct. Bourdon chord. Second one, copying. If you remember what this one is called, if you wrote down broken Bourdon, you are correct. And finally, the last one here. If you remember, this one is called crossover. Now, for the very last part of our composition, I'm going to back up a little bit, we're going to need, for the bottom part, to write out antecedent 1 and consequent phrase, or antecedent 2, I'm sorry. We're using number 2. I'm going to take this and copy it down to those two measures. So I'm not doing anything new, I'm just going to copy the music. I'm going to write my treble clef, I'm going to write my 4/4 time signature, and I'm going to copy down the notes that I wrote out up there, which leads me to my antecedent phrase. And following this, in the next two measures, I will write out my consequent phrase. So my consequent phrase from right here goes in these two measures. Again, we are copying, not creating anything new. So go ahead and write that down in your worksheet. You may pause the video if you need additional time. When you finish, you need to write your double bar that says the end. And the final part of it is picking a Bourdon. I think I like the crossover Bourdon, and so that part of what I need to put on my music is I draw my treble clef, I draw my 4/4 time signature, I'm going to write my Bourdon pattern, and then I repeat, repeat, repeat my final bar, and I need to say that these two lines go together. So I'm going to write a brace. I will label this melody and this one Bourdon. And there we have a two-part pentatonic composition, antecedent and consequent phrase, with a Bourdon accompaniment.